What would you do if asking for a simple seat in a crowded cafe completely changed your life forever? If one question led to a dangerous man claiming not just the chair beside you, but your entire future? Today's story follows Mara Jones, an African-American street artist struggling to survive in Seoul, who walks into an upscale Gangnam cafe and asks a mysterious, powerful man if she can sit at his table. What starts as a desperate need for rest becomes a high-stakes game of secrets, codes, and a love that neither of them saw coming. This isn't just about a chance encounter. It's about two people from completely different worlds colliding in the most dangerous, unexpected way possible. It's about art and obsession, control and chaos, duty and desire. You're getting forbidden romance, corporate espionage, life-threatening danger, ancient ciphers, forced proximity, and a love so intense it could destroy everything they've built. This one will have you on the edge of your seat, heart racing, completely unable to look away. Grab your snacks. Hit that subscribe button right now because you don't want to miss a single moment of this. Let's dive in. The cafe smelled like expensive coffee and even more expensive perfume. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over marble floors, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. Every table was occupied by Seoul's elite. Business executives in tailored suits, socialites with designer handbags, couples sharing intimate conversations over tiny pastries that cost more than Mara's weekly food budget. Mara stood near the entrance, her paint-stained backpack heavy on her shoulders, feeling completely out of place. Her worn sneakers squeaked slightly on the polished floor. She'd been walking for 3 hours, her feet aching, her throat dry, desperately needing to sit down and catch her breath before the long journey back to her tiny studio apartment in Itaewon. She shouldn't be here. This place wasn't for people like her, migrants scraping by on street art commissions and the occasional teaching gig. But the November rain had started without warning, and this was the closest shelter. She had maybe enough one in her pocket for a single Americano if she was lucky. Her eyes scanned the crowded space, looking for any available seat, any corner where she could rest for just 20 minutes. That's when she saw him. A man sat alone at a large table near the window, perfectly positioned away from the crowd. The table could easily fit 6 people, but he occupied it like a king on a throne, completely unbothered by the scarcity of seating around him. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her entire year's rent, tailored so perfectly it seemed like a second skin. His black hair was styled back, revealing sharp features and a jawline that could cut glass. But it was his presence that made her pause. Something about the way he sat, utterly still, completely focused on the tablet in front of him, commanded respect. The air around him seemed different, heavier. People walking past his table unconsciously gave it a wider berth, as if approaching him required permission they didn't dare ask for. Mara had lived in Seoul for 2 years. She'd learned to read the hierarchy, the unspoken rules. This man was dangerous. Not in a violent way, in a powerful way. The kind of person who made decisions that changed lives with a single word. She should walk away. Find another cafe, another seat, anywhere else. But her feet hurt so badly. And that table had 5 empty chairs. Taking a deep breath, Mara walked toward him, her heart hammering. As she got closer, she noticed more details. The Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. The subtle tattoo peeking out from under his collar. Unusual for someone so corporate. The way his fingers moved across the tablet screen with decisive, controlled movements. She stopped at the edge of his table. He didn't look up. "Excuse me," she said in her heavily accented Korean, the words feeling clumsy in her mouth. "Can I sit here?" For a long moment, he didn't respond. The jazz music seemed to fade. Mara felt her face heating up, embarrassment creeping in. She was about to turn away when he finally raised his head. His eyes hit her like a physical force. Dark, intense, calculating. They swept over her in a single, comprehensive glance that somehow cataloged everything. Her paint-stained jeans, her fraying backpack, the exhaustion in her face, the defiance in her posture. When he spoke, his English was flawless, with a slight British accent that surprised her. "Only if you stay with me. For the duration of my meeting." Mara blinked. "What? You heard me." His voice was calm, measured, with an underlying authority that made it clear he wasn't asking. "Sit. Stay until I'm finished here. Those are the terms." That's weird," Mara said, her exhaustion making her more honest than wise. "I just need a chair for like 20 minutes. Then you'll have no problem accepting my condition." He gestured to the seat directly across from him. Or you can keep standing. Something in his tone made it clear this wasn't a negotiation. Mara's pride bristled, but her aching feet won. She slid into the chair, dropping her backpack beside her. "Thank you," she muttered. He returned his attention to his tablet, as if she'd already ceased to exist. A waiter appeared almost instantly. Where had he even come from? And the man ordered without looking up. "Espresso. Double. And whatever she wants." The waiter turned to Mara expectantly. She froze, calculating costs in her head. "Americano is fine," she said quietly. "Small. Large," the man corrected, still not looking at her. "And the honey almond croissant. 2 of them." "I didn't," Mara started. "You haven't eaten today." It wasn't a question. His eyes finally lifted to meet hers again, and there was something unsettling in that gaze. Something that saw too much. "Am I wrong?" Mara's throat tightened. How could he possibly know that? The waiter left before she could protest. An uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Mara pulled out her phone, trying to look busy, but she was intensely aware of him, of the way he held himself, of the subtle tension in his shoulders that suggested coiled energy ready to spring. "You're Amara Jones," he said suddenly. Her head snapped up. "How do you know my name?" "You sign your murals." "Mara. The warehouse on Chongyecheon. The underpass near Dongdaemun. The abandoned factory in Mully." His fingers stilled on the tablet. "Your work is distinctive. Chaotic but deliberate. Beautiful but coded." A chill ran down Mara's spine. "You've been following me?" "I've been aware of you." He set the tablet down, giving her his full attention for the first time. "My name is John Hyung-sik. You can call me Jay." "I don't want to call you anything," Mara said, her instincts screaming at her to run. "I just wanted a seat. And I just want information." Jay leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, but his eyes never left hers. "Tell me about the mural you painted 3 nights ago. The one on the condemned warehouse in Seongsadong." Mara's blood went cold. That mural had been special. Personal. She'd spent weeks researching, incorporating elements of Joseon-era art into a modern street piece. It was one of her most complex works, layered with historical references that most people would never catch. "It's just art," she said carefully. "It's a cipher." Jay's voice remained calm, almost conversational. "A very old one, modified for modern use. The patterns reference a 16th century court code used by royal painters to hide messages from the king's enemies. You embedded coordinates, dates, and transaction details into what looks like decorative elements." Mara's mouth went dry. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "The question is whether you knew what you were painting, or if someone fed you the design." "Nobody fed me anything." The words came out more defensively than she intended. "I research historical art. I incorporate it into my work. That's what I do. If there's some coincidence." "There's no coincidence." Jay pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. Mara's mural filled the display. But overlaid on top of it was a translucent diagram showing highlighted sections, connected with lines and annotations in Korean. The breakdown revealed exactly what he'd described. Her artistic choices mapped to a complex code. "That warehouse," Jay continued, putting the phone away, "is owned by a shell company connected to one of the largest art smuggling operations in East Asia. Your mural, intentionally or not, contains the complete details of their next transaction. $72 million in stolen Joseon-era artifacts, set to move in 72 hours. The cafe seemed to tilt around Mara. "I didn't. I would never." "I believe you." His voice softened slightly. "You're an artist, not a criminal. But someone used you. Someone who knew you'd be drawn to that warehouse, who knew your research habits, your aesthetic preferences. They planted the right references where you'd find them, knowing you'd incorporate them into your work. Why would anyone do that? Because a code hidden in street art is virtually impossible to trace. If intercepted, it looks like nothing. Just a beautiful mural by a talented artist." Jay leaned forward, his intensity increasing. "But the people who commissioned it know how to read it. And now so do I." The waiter returned with their order, the interruption giving Mara a moment to process. The croissants looked incredible, flaky and golden, but her appetite had vanished. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked once the waiter left. "If you know about the smuggling operation, why not just stop it?" "Because I need to know who's behind it. The organization I work for handles corporate security, for several major Korean conglomerates, including the National Museum. We've been tracking this smuggling ring for 8 months. Your mural is the first real break we've had." He paused. "And you're the only one who can fully decipher it. I told you I didn't know. I know you didn't. But you understand the historical context better than my analysts. You can identify elements they can't see. And more importantly," he paused, his gaze sharpening, "you're the bait. Excuse me. The people who used you will realize you've become a liability. Either you can help them willingly by providing more detailed information, or you become a problem that needs to be eliminated. They're probably already watching you." Mara's hands started shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to steady herself. "This is insane. I'm just a street artist. I paint walls. I teach kids English twice a week. I'm nobody. You stopped being nobody the moment you painted that mural." Jay's voice was matter-of-fact, but not unkind. "I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Then I'll go to the police. And tell them what? That your art accidentally contains a smuggling code you didn't know you were painting? They'll assume you're involved. You're a foreign national with an expired tourist visa. Yes, I know about that too, working illegally. You'll be deported at best, detained for questioning at worst." Mara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to come with me. Now. To somewhere safe. You'll help me finish decoding the mural, we'll stop the transaction, and I'll make sure you're protected throughout the entire process." He pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. "Afterward, I'll help you get proper documentation to stay in Korea legally. You'll be compensated for your time and trouble." Mara stared at the card. John Hyung-sik. It read in both Korean and English. "Director of Strategic Security, Hansung Protective Solutions. And if I say no, then you walk out of here, and you're on your own." His expression didn't change, but something in his voice hardened. "But I should mention that across the street, there's a black sedan that's been parked there since you arrived. 2 men inside. They've been watching this cafe very carefully." Mara's heart stopped. Slowly, trying not to be obvious, she glanced toward the window. There, exactly as he'd described. A black sedan with tinted windows, 2 silhouettes visible in the front seats. "They're not my people," Jay said quietly, "which means they're the people who used you, and they're waiting to see what you do next." The croissants sat untouched on the table. The coffee steamed gently, filling the air with its rich aroma. Everything looked so normal, so safe. But Mara felt like she'd stumbled into a nightmare. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "How do I know you're not the dangerous one?" Jay smiled then, a brief, almost sad expression. "You don't. But consider this, if I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have bought you breakfast first." He stood up, buttoning his suit jacket with smooth, practiced movements. "The choice is yours, Amara. But you need to make it in the next 60 seconds, because those men across the street just received a phone call, and now they're getting out of the car." Mara's eyes snapped to the window. He was right. The sedan doors were opening. 2 men in dark clothing emerged, their attention fixed on the cafe entrance. Every instinct screamed at her that this was wrong, that she should run, that trusting this stranger was insane. But where would she run to? Her apartment? They probably already knew where she lived. Jay extended his hand. 60 seconds, Mara." She looked at his hand, strong, steady, with calluses that suggested he was more than just a corporate security director. She looked at his face, sharp, intelligent, with eyes that held secrets and shadows, but also, strangely, a kind of dark honor. She looked at the men walking toward the cafe entrance, purpose in every step. Mara grabbed her backpack and took his hand. His grip was firm, almost possessive. "Good choice." He moved with startling speed, guiding her not toward the front entrance, but toward the back of the cafe. They passed through a door marked staff only, down a narrow hallway that smelled of coffee beans and cleaning supplies. Jay moved like he'd done this 1,000 times, like he knew every exit in every building he ever entered. They emerged into a back alley where a sleek black car waited, engine already running. A driver sat behind the wheel, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and an earpiece. "We have company," Jay said calmly as he opened the back door for Mara. "I saw. 3 minutes to clear the area," the driver responded in Korean. Mara climbed in, her heart racing. Jay slid in beside her, and the car was moving before his door even closed. Through the back window, She saw the two men burst out of the cafe's back entrance, but they were already too far away. "Who are you really?" Mara asked, her voice shaking. "Corporate security directors don't have getaway cars." Jay looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something almost like respect in his expression. "I'm someone who's very good at keeping valuable things safe. And right now, whether you like it or not, you've become extremely valuable." The car merged smoothly into Seoul traffic, carrying them away from the cafe, away from her normal life, towards something Mara couldn't even begin to imagine. She'd asked for a seat. She'd gotten so much more than that. And deep down, in a place she didn't want to acknowledge, she realized she'd been seen, truly seen, for the first time in her life. Not just as a struggling artist or a foreign worker, but as someone important, someone worth protecting. Even if that protection came from a man who was clearly more dangerous than anyone she'd ever met. The car drove for 40 minutes, winding through Seoul's streets in a pattern Mara couldn't follow. The driver, whose name was Han, she learned, checked the mirrors constantly, taking turns that seemed random but were clearly calculated. Mara sat in tense silence, clutching her backpack, trying to process what had just happened. Jay made several phone calls in rapid Korean, his voice clipped and authoritative. She caught enough words to understand he was coordinating with his team, setting up security protocols, arranging for surveillance on the cafe. When he finally ended the last call, he turned to her. "Are you hurt? Scared?" "Both," Mara admitted. "This morning I woke up planning to finish a commission. Now I'm in a car with a stranger running from people who apparently want to... What? Kill me. Probably just question you. Aggressively." Jay's attempt at reassurance fell flat. "But yes, there was a risk of real harm." "Great. That's so much better." He almost smiled. "You have a sense of humor even under stress. That's good. You'll need it." The car pulled into an underground garage beneath a high-rise building in Gangnam. The garage was pristine, with numbered spots and security cameras everywhere. Han parked in a private section marked executive level, and they took a private elevator that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. "Where are we?" Mara asked as the elevator climbed. "My home. It's the most secure location I have access to on short notice." The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment that took Mara's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a stunning view of Seoul's skyline. The space was massive, an open-plan living area with minimalist furniture, all clean lines and neutral colors. Everything was meticulously organized, not a single item out of place. It was beautiful. It was also completely sterile, like a high-end hotel rather than a home. "Make yourself comfortable," Jay said, loosening his tie. "You're safe here. The building has military-grade security. No one can reach this floor without authorization." Mara set her backpack down carefully on the pristine white sofa, feeling like she was contaminating the space with her paint-stained presence. "How long do I have to stay here?" "Until we've decoded the mural and neutralized the threat. 72 hours at most." 72 hours? Her voice rose. "I have a life. I have students expecting me, a commission due. All of which becomes irrelevant if you're dead." Jay's bluntness cut through her protests. "I've already had my team notify your contacts that you've had a family emergency and need to return to the States briefly. Your students will be covered. The commission client will wait. You can't just take over my life." "I just did." He moved to a built-in bar, pouring himself 2 fingers of whiskey. "I understand you're angry, but anger means you're alive to feel it. I'd like to keep it that way." Mara wanted to scream at him, to demand he take her home, to insist this was all insane. But the memory of those men getting out of the sedan, the purposeful way they'd moved toward the cafe, kept her silent. "Can I at least call someone? Let them know I'm okay." "No phones. Not until we're certain they haven't compromised your contacts." He saw her expression and added, "I'm not trying to isolate you. I'm trying to protect you. Anyone you call could be in danger too." The reality of her situation sank in deeper. She was truly alone here, completely dependent on a man she'd met an hour ago. Jay must have seen something in her face because his expression softened slightly. "I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I don't even know you. Then get to know me." He gestured to the living area. "We're going to be spending a lot of time together over the next few days. Ask me anything." Mara studied him, this strange, intense man who'd pulled her into his world with barely a warning. "Fine. Are you really just a corporate security director?" Because this all feels very unofficial. I run a legitimate security firm. We protect corporate assets, conduct risk assessment, provide executive protection. But some of our clients operate in gray areas. And sometimes the threats we handle aren't the kind you call the police for. So you're like what? A fixer? Among other things. He didn't elaborate. The tattoo on your neck. What is it? His hand unconsciously moved to his collar. A dragon. Traditional style. I got it when I was younger, more foolish. Why a dragon? Because dragons protect treasures. And back then, I thought I knew what was worth protecting. Something shifted in his expression. A glimpse of old pain quickly shuddered. I was wrong. The vulnerability in that admission surprised her. Before she could press further, he changed the subject. Are you hungry? Real food, not cafe pastries. Mara realized she was starving. Yes. I'll order something. Korean. Japanese. Western. Korean is fine. He made a call, ordering what sounded like an elaborate meal, then gestured for her to follow him. Let me show you where you'll be staying. The guest room was as immaculate as the rest of the apartment. A large bedroom with an ensuite bathroom, decorated in the same minimalist style. But someone had already placed fresh towels, unopened toiletries, and even a few changes of clothes on the bed. How did you? Mara started. I have efficient staff. The clothes are approximate sizes based on visual assessment. If they don't fit, we'll get others. Mara picked up one of the shirts, soft cotton, good quality, exactly her size. It should have been comforting. Instead, it reminded her how thoroughly he'd already catalogued her, how much control he had. There's a panic button by the bed, Jay continued, pointing to a small device on the nightstand. Press it if you need me. The door locks from inside if you want privacy. But Mara, he waited until she looked at him. Don't try to leave. Please. I'm not keeping you prisoner, but I need you to stay put until we've handled this situation. She wanted to argue, but the exhaustion, the fear, the sheer weight of everything crashed over her. She nodded. Good. Rest if you need to. Food will be here in 30 minutes. Then we'll start working on the mural. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Mara stood in the center of the pristine room, feeling like she'd fallen through a looking glass into some alternate reality. She moved to the window, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there was her tiny apartment with her art supplies scattered everywhere, her students waiting for their English lessons, her friend Jean Woo, who'd probably text her soon wondering if she wanted to grab cheap bibimbap. Her normal life felt impossibly far away. She pulled out her phone. She still had it, even if she couldn't use it, and scrolled through her photos. Pictures of her murals, of street scenes, of the Korean friends who'd helped her survive these 2 years. Evidence of the life she'd built here, fragile but hers. A knock at the door startled her. Food's here, Jay called. Mara put her phone away and opened the door. Time to face whatever came next. The meal was incredible. Jajangmyeon, tangsuyuk, jampong, dumplings, enough food for 5 people. Jay set everything out on the dining table with surprising care, handling the containers like they mattered. You ordered too much, Mara said. I didn't know what you liked. He handed her chopsticks. Eat whatever appeals to you. They ate in silence for a while. Mara was too hungry to maintain her anger, and the food was too good. She caught Jay watching her a few times, his expression thoughtful. What? She finally asked. You eat like someone who's learned not to waste food. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. I grew up with a single mom in Baltimore. Money was tight. Then I moved here with nothing but savings from 2 years of waitressing. I know what hungry feels like. Why Seoul? Why not? She met his gaze. I studied art history in college, fell in love with Korean traditional painting, applied for a teaching position, didn't get it, came anyway as a tourist and never left. That's brave. Or reckless. Both. She smiled slightly. My mom thinks I'm insane. She wanted me to come home, get a stable job, settle down. But I couldn't. This city, she gestured toward the window, it makes me feel alive in a way Baltimore never did. And the street art is how I survive and how I connect with this place. I can't read every sign, can't always follow every conversation, but I can paint. Art is universal. Jay nodded slowly. I understand that. The feeling of not quite fitting into the world you're supposed to inhabit. Do you not fit? She couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. You seem pretty comfortable in your fancy penthouse with your security empire. Comfortable and fitting are different things. He set down his chopsticks. I was supposed to be a lawyer. Third generation. My grandfather was a judge, my father a prosecutor. But I didn't want to argue cases in courtrooms. I wanted, he paused, searching for words, action, solutions, to fix problems instead of just talking about them. So you became a security director. Eventually. First I was other things. Learned other skills. He didn't elaborate, but the way he said it suggested a darker past. My family was disappointed. Still is. But you're successful. Success and approval aren't the same thing either. They locked eyes across the table, and Mara felt a strange kinship with this complicated man. Both of them outsiders in different ways. Both of them building lives that didn't match what others expected. The moment stretched, charged with an unexpected understanding. Jay broke it first. We should get to work. I need to see the mural analysis. He led her to a home office that was pure functionality. Massive monitors, high-end computer equipment, a large digital drawing tablet. He pulled up images of her mural from multiple angles, along with the analytical overlay he'd shown her at the cafe. Tell me about your research process, he said, pulling up a chair beside her. What sources did you use for this piece? Mara settled into the familiar territory of discussing her art. I started with the traditional court painting techniques from the Joseon dynasty. The use of symbolic animals, the color hierarchies, the compositional rules. I found this amazing blog that detailed how royal painters would hide messages in their work during periods of political tension. What blog? She pulled up her phone's browser history, scrolling back. Here, Hidden Voices of the Past. It had incredible detail about the cipher systems, with examples from actual historical paintings. Jay took the phone, his expression darkening as he examined the site. When did you find this? About 3 weeks ago, right before I started planning the warehouse piece. He tapped rapidly on his keyboard, running searches. His face went grim. This site was created 5 weeks ago. It's a ghost, no prior web presence, registered through anonymous services, hosted on servers that mask the real location. Mara's stomach dropped. So someone made it, just for me to find. They made it for someone like you to find. An artist with your interests, your research patterns. They seeded it into the right forums, the right search results. And you took the bait. I feel so stupid. Don't. It was sophisticated social engineering. They understood how artists think, how you'd be drawn to this specific information. He pulled up another screen, showing a breakdown of her mural with annotations. Walk me through each section. Tell me what you intended versus what's actually encoded. For the next 3 hours, they worked together, dissecting her art piece by piece. Mara explained her artistic choices, while Jay mapped them to the hidden code. It was painstaking work, requiring her to remember every decision, every brushstroke. As they worked, she became aware of him in ways that had nothing to do with fear. The way he leaned forward when concentrating, the subtle scent of his cologne, the careful way he listened to her explanations. He treated her artistic knowledge with respect, never dismissing her insights even when they seemed tangential. Here, she said, pointing to a section with intertwined flowers. I used plum blossoms and chrysanthemums together because they represent different seasons meeting. It's not traditional, but I thought it looked beautiful. But in the code, Jay said slowly, tracing the pattern, plum blossoms represent the first transaction party, chrysanthemums the second. You've painted them intertwining, which in cipher terms means a direct exchange rather than a drop system. Mara stared at the screen. Her artistic choice had perfectly communicated information she didn't know she was sharing. It was brilliant and terrifying. Whoever designed this understood you, Jay said quietly. Your aesthetic, your approach to composition. They weaponized your talent. Can we stop them? The transaction. Yes, but I need the complete decode first. Some elements are still unclear, specifically the location and the exact timing. He rubbed his eyes, showing the first sign of fatigue. We'll work more tomorrow. It's late. Mara checked her phone. Nearly midnight. They'd been working for hours without her noticing. You should rest, Jay said, standing. We'll need clear minds for this. But as Mara stood, a wave of anxiety hit her. I don't know if I can sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see those men from the cafe. Jay's expression softened. They can't reach you here. I promise. You can't promise that. Not really. Yes, I can. His voice carried absolute certainty. This is what I do, Mara. I keep people safe. I've never lost anyone under my protection. You won't be the first. There was something almost fierce in that declaration, like he was making a vow not just to her but to himself. Mara found herself believing him, not because of logic, but because of the intensity in his eyes. Okay, she whispered. If you can't sleep, read, watch something, whatever helps. Just don't go outside the apartment. She nodded, returning to her room. But sleep didn't come. She lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through everything that had happened. Around 2 a.m, she heard soft sounds from the living area. Curiosity won over caution. She crept out, finding Jay sitting on the balcony, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring out at the city lights. He turned as she approached. Can't sleep either? Too much in my head. Join me. He gestured to the empty chair beside him. Mara sat, pulling her borrowed robe tighter against the night chill. The city spread out below them, millions of lights marking millions of lives, all unaware of the small drama unfolding in this penthouse. Can I ask you something personal? Mara said. You can ask. I might not answer. Have you ever been in love? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He took a long sip of whiskey before responding. Once. A long time ago. What happened? I couldn't give her what she needed. My work, my life. It's not compatible with normalcy, with safety. She wanted a future I couldn't provide. His voice was carefully neutral, but Mara heard the old pain underneath. She was right to leave. Do you regret it? Every day. He looked at her then, and in the dim light, his face seemed younger, more vulnerable. But I wouldn't have changed my choices. I'm good at what I do. I save people, protect things that matter. That has value, even if it costs me personally. Sounds lonely. It is. He smiled slightly. But loneliness is a small price for doing meaningful work. Mara thought about her own loneliness in soul, the way she'd built a life around her art, but never quite connected deeply with anyone. She'd told herself it was temporary, that eventually she'd find her place, her people. But 2 years had passed, and she was still on the outside looking in. I get that, she said softly. The loneliness, the trade-offs. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 isolated people finding unexpected understanding in the middle of a crisis. The city hummed below them, indifferent to their small connection. Finally, Jay stood. Try to sleep. Tomorrow will be intense. But as he moved to leave, Mara caught his wrist. Thank you for protecting me, even if this is all crazy. His hand turned, fingers briefly squeezing hers. You're welcome. The touch lingered a moment too long. Then he was gone, leaving Mara with a racing heart and the disturbing realization that she was starting to feel something for this dangerous, complicated man. Something that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with want. The next day began with unexpected normalcy. Mara woke to the smell of coffee and found a breakfast spread laid out in the kitchen. Fresh fruit, pastries, rice, banchan. Jay was already working in his office, speaking rapidly in Korean on a phone call. He ended the call as she appeared. Good morning. Help yourself to breakfast. You didn't have to do all this, Mara said, pouring coffee. I need you sharp. Can't decode ancient ciphers on an empty stomach. He joined her at the counter, grabbing an apple. We have a development. Her stomach tightened. Good or bad? Unclear. The men from the cafe have been identified. Low-level operatives for a corporate intelligence firm called Daehan Strategic. On paper, they do market research and competitive analysis. In reality, they broker stolen intellectual property and facilitate gray market transactions. And the art smuggling is a new venture for them. Someone higher up decided to diversify. He pulled up a file on his tablet, showing her corporate documents. The problem is, we don't know who's running this operation. Daehan Strategic has legitimate contracts with several major corporations. Exposing them without proof could trigger legal retaliation against my company. So what do? We finish the decode. We identify the exact transaction details. And then we intercept it in a way that looks like a routine customs inspection or police operation. Clean, untraceable back to us. Mara sipped her coffee, processing. You've done this before. Worked in the shadows, making things happen without anyone knowing you were involved. It's the most effective way to solve certain problems. And the most morally gray. He met her eyes. Yes. Does that bother you? She considered. A week ago it would have. But after yesterday, after seeing how quickly she could become a target, After understanding how easily the normal systems could be manipulated, she wasn't sure anymore. I don't know, she admitted. The world seems more complicated than I thought. It is. But that doesn't mean we stop trying to do the right thing. We just have to be smarter about how we do it. They returned to the office, diving back into the mural analysis. As the morning progressed, Mara found herself falling into a rhythm with Jay. He'd ask questions, she'd explain her artistic choices, and together they'd unravel the hidden meanings. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, where their hands would brush reaching for the same document, or their faces would end up too close as they examined something on screen, or their eyes would meet and hold for a beat too long. The attraction simmering between them was becoming impossible to ignore. Around noon, while analyzing a particularly complex section involving traditional Korean knot patterns, Mara made a breakthrough. "Wait," she said, excitement rising. "These knots, I thought they were just decorative, but look at the way they're layered." In traditional Pojagi textiles, different knot patterns represented different families or guilds. What if each knot type here represents a specific artifact? Jay leaned in, his shoulder pressing against hers. "Show me." She traced each knot pattern on the screen, explaining the traditional meanings. Jay cross-referenced them with a database of stolen artifacts, and suddenly everything clicked into place. "That's it," he breathed. "You just gave us the complete inventory list. 15 specific pieces, all confirmed stolen from various collections over the past 2 years. Mara felt a surge of satisfaction. Her knowledge, her passion for Korean art history, had just cracked a major part of the case. "You're brilliant," Jay said, and there was genuine admiration in his voice. Their eyes met. The air between them seemed to thicken. Mara became acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how his hand had somehow ended up near hers on the desk, how his gaze had shifted from professional appreciation to something warmer, more personal. "Jay," she started, not even sure what she was going to say. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered, his expression quickly turning serious. He spoke in rapid Korean, his voice taking on that authoritative tone she'd heard before. When he ended the call, tension radiated from him. "What is it?" Mara asked. "Daehan Strategic just made a move. They've sent people to your apartment in Itaewon. They're searching it right now." Fear spiked through her. "My things are just things. You're safe. That's what matters." But his jaw was tight. "However, this confirms they're actively looking for you. They know you're the key to understanding the full mural. So what happens now? We accelerate the timeline. We can't wait for them to make more aggressive moves." He stood, pacing. "I need to decode the location and timing tonight. Can you keep working with me? It might take hours." "Of course." "Good. Because once we have all the details, I'm ending this." There was something almost dangerous in his tone, a glimpse of the man beneath the polished corporate exterior. "No one threatens what's mine and walks away." The possessiveness in that statement sent a shiver through Mara. When had she become his to protect? And why did some part of her not mind? They worked through the afternoon without stopping, fueled by coffee and determination. Slowly, painstakingly, they extracted more information. The location emerged first, a private warehouse near Incheon Port, used by a logistics company with ties to Daehan Strategic. The timing was harder. Mara's use of seasonal flowers and celestial symbols had encoded a date and time, but it was layered with multiple possible interpretations. As evening fell, and they still struggled with the timing, frustration mounted. "It has to be here," Mara insisted, pointing at a section with moon phases she'd painted. "I used a full moon in this corner, but also new moon imagery in the opposite corner. That can't be random. Unless the code uses both," Jay said slowly. "What if it's not about a single moment, but a window? Starting at new moon, culminating at full moon." They checked the lunar calendar. The window would open tomorrow night and close in 2 days. "We need to move now," Jay said, immediately making calls. Over the next hour, Mara watched him coordinate with his team, arranging surveillance, contacting what sounded like law enforcement connections, setting up a plan to intercept the transaction. He was completely in his element, commanding, strategic, thinking 3 steps ahead. She found herself drawn to this side of him, the competence and control, the way he handled crisis with calm precision. When he finally finished, night had fully fallen. He looked exhausted but satisfied. "It's done. We have people watching the warehouse. The moment anything moves, we'll know. And then," And then we stop it. Quietly. Efficiently. He poured them both whiskey. They'd earned it. You did incredible work today, Mara. This case has been cold for months. You broke it open in 2 days. She accepted the glass, their fingers brushing. I just explained my art. You did more than that. You helped take down a smuggling operation that's stolen millions in cultural artifacts. He raised his glass. To unexpected partnerships. To survival, she countered. They drank, the whiskey burning pleasantly down her throat. The tension that had been building all day seemed to crystallize in the quiet of the evening, in the intimacy of shared accomplishment. Can I ask you something? Mara said, emboldened by exhaustion and alcohol. Earlier, when you got that call about my apartment, you said, "What's mine?" Did you mean that? Jay's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. It's a figure of speech. You're under my protection. It didn't sound like a figure of speech. He held her gaze, and she saw the internal battle playing out. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. I don't form attachments easily. My work, my life, it doesn't allow for it. But you, he paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. You've gotten under my skin in a way I didn't anticipate. Mara's heart hammered. Is that a problem? It could be. Attachment creates vulnerability. And in my world, vulnerability gets people hurt. I'm already hurt, or at least in danger. She moved closer, closing the distance between them. Maybe a little more vulnerability isn't the worst thing. Mara, her name came out like a warning. You don't know what you're asking for. Then tell me. The air between them crackled with tension. Jay's control was visibly fraying, his careful walls cracking under the weight of whatever he was feeling. I'm not a good man, he said quietly. I've done things that would horrify you, made choices that haunt me. The reason I'm so good at protecting people is because I know exactly how dangerous the world can be. I've been that danger. I don't believe you're as bad as you think you are. You barely know me. I know you've kept me safe. I know you respect my work. I know you could have handled this situation a dozen different ways, but you chose to protect me rather than just use me. She reached out, her hand resting on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. I know when you look at me, I feel seen in a way I haven't felt in years. His hand came up, covering hers, pressing it more firmly against his chest. His heartbeat was racing. This is a bad idea, he said, but he wasn't pulling away. Probably. We're in the middle of a dangerous situation. I know. You're going to leave when this is over. Go back to your life. Something about that statement hurt more than she expected. Is that what you want? His other hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. What I want and what's smart are two different things. Stop being smart then. Just for a moment. For a heartbeat, they balanced on the edge. Then Jay closed the distance, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was both controlled and desperate, like he'd been holding back for too long and finally couldn't anymore. Mara melted into him, her hands sliding up to his shoulders, then into his hair. The kiss deepened, 2 days of tension and attraction and adrenaline finally finding release. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jay rested his forehead against hers. This complicates everything, he murmured. I don't care. He pulled back enough to look at her, his eyes dark with want and something that looked like fear. I do. Because now I have even more reason to keep you safe. And that makes me dangerous. To who? To anyone who tries to hurt you. The fierce protectiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it made her feel cherished in a way she'd never experienced. Stay with me tonight, he said, and it wasn't entirely clear if it was a request or a command. Not for, just stay. I need to know you're close. Mara nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. They moved to his bedroom, larger than the guest room, but still minimalist. The bed was perfectly made, the surfaces clear of personal items. It was like he didn't really live here, just existed in this space between missions or cases, or whatever he called the things he did. They lay down together, still clothed, and Jay pulled her against him, her back to his chest, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. Sleep, he murmured into her hair. Tomorrow might be difficult, but Mara couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with too many thoughts. The danger still lurking, the case they'd cracked, the feel of Jay's body against hers, the way everything had shifted between them so quickly. Jay, when this is over, what happens to us? His arm tightened around her. I don't know, but I'd like to find out. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even close to certainty. But it was something, and right now, something was enough. Eventually, exhaustion won. Mara drifted off in the arms of a dangerous man who'd somehow become her safety, wondering how her life had become so beautifully, terrifyingly complicated in just 2 days. Mara woke to urgent voices and the gray light of early morning. She was alone in the bed, Jay's side already cold. Panic spiked through her before she heard his voice from the living area. Calm, commanding, very much in control. She threw on the robe and emerged to find Jay on the phone, fully dressed in tactical black clothing she hadn't seen before. He looked different. Harder, more dangerous. The corporate veneer had been completely stripped away. Han was there too, along with 2 other people in similar tactical gear, all gathered around laptops, showing what looked like surveillance footage. Jay saw her and immediately moved to her side. There's been a development. What kind of development? The transaction moved up. It's happening now. They're at the warehouse. Mara's eyes widened. Right now, we have a team in position. Local police are coordinating with customs officials. It'll look like a routine inspection that happened to catch something suspicious. His hand found hers, squeezing briefly. But there's a complication. Of course there was. What complication? They have someone with them who matches your description. Another African-American woman, roughly your age and build. Mara's blood went cold. They found someone to replace me? More likely they grabbed someone to use as leverage or a decoy. We don't know yet. His jaw tightened. But it means we can't wait. If she's in danger, we have to help her, Mara finished. Yes, which means I need to go now. Han will stay with you. Do not leave this apartment. Do not answer the door for anyone except me or someone I specifically send with our code phrase. What code phrase? The painting is incomplete. Anyone legitimate will say that exact phrase. Anyone else, you run to the panic room and lock yourself in. This was really happening. The abstract danger had become concrete and immediate. Be careful, Mara said, and was surprised by how much she meant it, how much the thought of him in danger made her chest tight. He cupped her face, kissing her quickly but thoroughly. I'm always careful, and I have every reason to come back. His eyes held hers. Stay safe. For me. Then he was gone, the other tactical members following him, leaving Mara alone with Han, who'd taken up position by the door with a weapon Mara tried not to look at too closely. The next 3 hours were torture. Han said little, monitoring something on her phone with grim concentration. Mara paced, unable to sit still, imagining every possible horrible outcome. Finally, Han's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her expression shifted to relief. They got them, Han said. Clean interception. The artifacts are recovered, the Dahan strategic operatives are in custody, and the woman they had is safe. She was an employee they'd coerced, not a random victim. She's cooperating with police now. Mara's knees went weak with relief. And Jay, on his way back. When Jay finally walked through the door 20 minutes later, Mara didn't think. She just moved, throwing herself into his arms. He caught her easily, holding her tight. It's over, he murmured into her hair. You're safe now. I wasn't worried about me, she said against his chest. I was worried about you. She felt him smile. I told you I'm very good at this. They stood like that for a long moment before Jay gently pulled back. We need to debrief. There's something you should know. That didn't sound good. Mara's stomach nodded. What? He led her to the office, pulling up files on his computer. During the arrest, one of the operatives tried to make a deal. He gave up information about how the operation started. And the blog that fed you the cipher information? It was created by someone inside one of the museums my company protects. A curator with access to security protocols, artifact databases, everything. She'd been approached by Dahan Strategic months ago and agreed to help them identify which pieces would be most valuable to steal. Mara's eyes widened. So this was an inside job. Partially. She provided the intelligence, they handled the theft and logistics. But she got greedy, started demanding a larger cut. They needed a way to communicate transaction details that couldn't be traced back to her. That's when she suggested using the street art angle. She knew about me? She'd seen your work, knew your style, your research habits. You were the perfect unwitting courier. Jay's expression darkened. She's been arrested. She'll face charges for conspiracy, theft, and endangerment. Mara sank into a chair, processing. My art was literally weaponized by someone I've never met. Yes. And I'm sorry that happened. Jay knelt beside her chair. But you also helped stop it. That mural was your work, your passion, your knowledge. They tried to use it against you, but instead, you used it to take them down. She looked at him, this complicated man who'd crashed into her life and turned everything upside down. What happens now? To me, I mean. Can I go home? You can go back to your apartment, yes. The threat is neutralized. But Mara, he took her hands. I meant what I said before, about wanting to find out what happens with us. Her heart stuttered. You did. I don't make promises lightly. And I don't let people in easily. But you, he smiled slightly. You asked for a seat, and somehow ended up taking residence in places I didn't even know were empty. That's possibly the most emotionally constipated way anyone's ever told me they have feelings, Mara said, but she was smiling. I'm working with limited experience here. I can tell. She squeezed his hands. For the record, I'd like to find out too. What happens with us? Even knowing what I do. What I am. Especially because of it. You saved my life, Jay. But more than that, you saw me. Not just as a potential asset or a problem to solve, but as a person. As an artist. You respected my work even when it was being used against me. It's easy to respect you, he said quietly. You're extraordinary. They kissed again, slower this time, without the urgency of danger or the uncertainty of what came next. This kiss was a beginning, not an ending. When they finally pulled apart, Mara laughed softly. This is insane. I've known you 3 days. 3 very intense days. Fair point. She stood, pulling him up with her. So what now? Do you take me home? Do we have a normal date? How does this work? I have no idea, Jay admitted. I've never done this before. What? Dated someone you met during a case? Dated anyone in the last 5 years? He looked almost sheepish. I told you, I'm not good at normal. Then we'll figure it out together. Mara grinned. Fair warning though, I'm messy, I keep weird hours, and my apartment is probably 1/10 the size of your closet. I don't care about any of that. You say that now. I'll say it later too. He pulled her close again. Mara, I know this is fast. I know we should probably slow down, get to know each other in normal circumstances. But I also know that from the moment you asked for that seat, something in my world shifted. And I don't want to go back to how things were before. Tears pricked Mara's eyes. You really know how to sweet-talk a girl when you try. Is it working? Completely. 2 weeks later, Mara stood in front of a freshly painted wall in Hongdae, putting the finishing touches on her latest mural. This one was purely hers. No hidden codes, no secret messages. Just art for art's sake, vibrant and free. It's beautiful, Jay said from behind her. She turned, paintbrush still in hand, to find him leaning against his car, arms crossed, watching her with that intense gaze that still made her heart skip. You're biased, she said. Probably, but it's still beautiful. He'd been true to his word. Over the past 2 weeks, they'd navigated the strange territory of building a relationship after their chaotic beginning. He'd helped her secure a proper visa, calling in favors, cutting through red tape. She'd introduced him to her world. Cheap street food, late-night art sessions. Her friend Jean Wu, who'd been initially suspicious, but had warmed up after Jay had casually mentioned he could get tickets to a sold-out K-pop concert. They were an unlikely pair. But somehow it worked. Jay pushed off from the car, walking over to examine her mural more closely. What's this one about? Collision, Mara said. When 2 different things come together and create something new. Something unexpected. Is that your artistic way of talking about us? Maybe. She grinned. 2 on the nose. A little. But I like it. He pulled her close, not caring that she was covered in paint. Have dinner with me tonight. Somewhere fancy, where I can wine and dine you properly. You know I prefer street food. I know, but let me try to impress you anyway. You impressed me when you saved my life. That was just professional competence. He kissed her forehead. I want to impress you as a man, not as a security director. Fine. Fancy dinner. But you're still coming with me to the Pojangmaka after for soju and tteokbokki. Deal. As they stood there, covered in paint and promise, Mara reflected on how much her life had changed in such a short time. She'd come to Seoul looking for something. Belonging, purpose, connection. She'd found it in the most unexpected way, with the most unexpected person. Hey Jay. That seat you gave me in the cafe? Best seat I've ever taken. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. The moment you asked for it, You became mine. I just didn't know it yet. Possessive much? You have no idea. She laughed, reaching up to kiss him. Good, because you're mine too. Always, he promised against her lips. And in that moment, surrounded by the art she'd created freely, held by the man who'd saved her and seen her and chosen her, Mara knew she'd finally found what she'd been searching for all along. She'd asked for a seat. She'd gotten a home. 6 months later, the first snow of winter fell on Seoul. Mara stood on the balcony of Jay's penthouse. Their penthouse now, her art supplies and chaos having thoroughly invaded his minimalist space, watching the flakes drift down over the glittering city. Jay emerged from inside, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. You'll freeze out here, he said. It's worth it. Seoul is beautiful in the snow. He stood behind her, arms wrapped around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. They'd settled into a comfortable rhythm over the months. Her art, his work, their shared life. It wasn't always easy. His job still took him into dangerous situations sometimes. Her passion for street art occasionally led her to questionable neighborhoods at questionable hours. They argued about his overprotectiveness and her recklessness in equal measure. But they always came back to each other. I have something for you, Jay said quietly. Mara turned in his arms. It's not my birthday. I know. He pulled out a small envelope, handing it to her. Inside was a key. But not just any key. Mara recognized it immediately. Is this the warehouse where you painted the mural? The one that started everything. Jay's eyes were warm. It's been fully cleared legally. And I bought it. For you. Mara stared at him. You bought me a warehouse. I bought you a studio. A proper one, where you can paint whatever you want, store your supplies, maybe even teach classes if you want. No more cramming everything into our bedroom. Tears welled up in her eyes. Jay, this is too much. Nothing is too much for you. He cupped her face gently. You asked me once what happens to us when the danger was over. This is my answer. This is me saying I want you here, in my life, in my space. I want to support your art, your dreams, everything that makes you who you are. I love you, Mara said, the words spilling out before she could think about them. Jay's expression shifted, vulnerability and joy mixing. I love you too. Have for a while now. I just didn't know how to say it. They kissed as snow fell around them. Two people who'd collided by chance and stayed by choice. Come inside, Jay murmured eventually. I'll make us hot chocolate. You don't make hot chocolate. You order it from that expensive cafe. Fine. I'll order us hot chocolate. The point stands. Mara laughed, letting him pull her inside where it was warm and safe and theirs. She'd come to Seoul alone, looking for something she couldn't name. She'd found it in art, in this city, and most unexpectedly, in a dangerous man who'd claimed her with a single condition in a crowded cafe. Seat taken, she'd asked. Now it is, he'd replied. So are you. And she was. Completely, irrevocably taken. By this city, by her work, by the man who'd protected her and loved her and given her a place to call home. It had started with a question and a chair. It had become a life, a love, a future. And Mara wouldn't change a single moment of it.